Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to ASU+GSV. My name is Bryan Richardson. I'm a Senior Program Officer on the Research and Development team at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I work on K-12 education. Our job today, our goal today, is to talk about the applications of artificial intelligence in education technology where we assume that the teacher is the user. In what ways can AI be helpful in generating a lesson plan, in helping you understand the types of questions that your students are asking when they engage with lessons, informing an IEP for a student. Our job today is to hopefully give you a diverse picture of what types of tools are out there, the different ways that they're approaching fitting into the way that teachers work in the classroom, and obviously improving instructional outcomes. One of my friends, Kumar Garg at Schmidt Futures, does a cool thing that I'd like to sort of copy, which is before we start yapping with the things that we want to talk about, I want to give all of you maybe 5 minutes. We'll have Donovan pass the mic around. Can you give us a sense? We're going to be talking about, again, applications of AI with teachers as the user. Can you talk to us about what it is that you'd like to hear, what you'd like to learn about, what questions you're coming into the room that you're hoping to get a little bit more clarity about? Donovan's in the back. If you wouldn't mind raising your hand. And we're gonna start with audience engagement. So please raise your hand with some of your thoughts about where we can steer the conversation today.
Hello, I'll start. Thank you all for being here. Dina Durish, I work as manager of teacher preparation for a large urban school district. And my particular role is working with teacher educators, so soon-to-be teachers. And one of the things that I'm noticing in this conference is everybody talks about how teachers can integrate all these new things in their classroom, but yet I'm not seeing a lot of faculty dialogue on the educator preparation side. And so we have some faculty that still don't use smart boards, and we have our graduates come out and aren't prepared. They're not cultural responses, which is a whole different conversation, but also not technologically responsive. And so how can we get that down to that level, to the ones we're preparing for the next gen?
Thank you.
I'll just take it over since I have a question. Hi. Super excited. This question is probably a little bit aggro, but I mean it in a genuine way, which is why do I need a tool instead of just using ChatGPT or GPT-4 myself?
Great question. In the back.
Just some thoughts around in teaching critical thinking in the face of AI and maybe how these tools support that, or just sort of your position on that and any trends that you're seeing.
Thank you. What other questions do you have for us that we can make sure we dig into?
I'd be interested in not just pure teaching roles and how that may change, but either non-teaching roles or support systems outside of the core teaching class, and also what do we mean by classroom?
Yep.
Be curious to know what you see as your biggest challenges for teachers in the education community as they grapple with this new technology.
Yep, challenges. Maybe one or two more? Great. And one last one.
Most of these technologies, getting to 80% is the easy part, but that last 20%, as we've seen with Tesla, self-driving as well, that last 20% is very hard to bridge.
Yep.
So when is it close enough to be mainstream?
Great. So how does this work in implementation? Why don't we just use ChatGPT? Where does this show up in teacher preparation? How is this actually going to make it to the totality of users that we have in the classroom? Why is this not just another piece of technology? So I'll do my best to try and weave some of these topics together.
And supporting critical thinking. That was
exactly. So without further ado, I really want to shift our attention to the stars of the show today, which are these founders, these leaders who are at the front lines of trying to think about how AI fits into the world of a teacher in the classroom. So I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves, and I have a question that I'd like all of them to start out with, which is, can you talk a little bit about your solution that you're developing, how it's being used in schools, and where they are, what is different about that classroom? And if you were to look ahead into the future and to the question about sort of getting more deeply ingrained into the use, how does that classroom look different in, say, 4 or 5 years? And again, if you'll start by introducing yourself, go ahead.
Awesome. So let me get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Ankit. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Quizizz. At Quizizz, we have built a learning platform that is trusted by teachers in 90% of the schools, where we empower the educators with the right set of tools to deliver instruction that reaches every student. I've been doing this for past 7 years, and I know many of our panelists are coming more from a teacher lens. However, I started Quizizz more from a student lens, and the problem statement was simple. When I was a kid, I didn't want to study. And I used to find it really difficult to engage in my classroom. And that was like the mission on which we went on, and very quickly realized that the best way to achieve that is by empowering the educators. So that's what we have been solving. We have been present in the system even before AI. And there were 3 key problem statements that we used to solve for a teacher. So it used to be about, hey, how can we help that teacher find the right content? Because we all know each class is different, each student is different, and as a teacher, we need flexibility. So that used to be like one core part which Quizizz used to do, even pre-AI. I'll talk about how it has changed with AI and how we see the future looking like. But the second key piece was, how do we deliver this this content in a way where it can reach to each and every student, and then make it easy for a teacher to really know where the class is and where the different students are, so that they can leverage that data in an easy way to drive their instruction. So this is something which we have been doing, even in the pre-AI world. However, as AI came in, I think the problem statement didn't change for us, but we realized that now with this new superior technology, you can do it, solve the same problem in a 10x better way. So one example if I take is, previously it used to take a teacher almost 40 minutes to find that right content. Now with AI coming in, it's just like 5 minutes. So I'd say as we have continued to build this, and the system itself has been moving so fast, I don't have all the answers what systems things would look like after 4 years or 5 years. However, one thing that we do believe strongly in is that if we stay true to the core problem statement, AI is again like a new technology, and like any technologies, it is good at doing the task but not the job. So that has been like our driving principle, and yeah, I'll pass it along to Jamie.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm the founder of TeachFX, and I started my career as a teacher, a math and English teacher at a high school in Harlem, and really got into the work because I care about equity and, have long been obsessed with the problem of how hard teaching is, and yet how constrained the system is in supporting teachers. I taught math and English. My English classes were never observed my entire teaching career. I never had an adult in the back of my room giving me feedback. And so I founded about 10 years after starting teaching, founded TeachFX in 2017. And what TeachFX is a way for teachers to record audio of their classroom. And then we use a variety of forms of voice AI, not ChatGPT. We're not LLM driven. We're driven by some other forms of AI, in order to provide that teacher with feedback and insights about their teaching, particularly focused on moments of celebration, positive moments of pedagogy. So we look at things like when you're asking questions, when you're asking open-ended questions versus closed questions, when you're asking questions that really help focus student thinking versus funneling them to a particular answer. When you're building on what students say. Oh, so it sounds like you added 70 to 30, yeah? Okay, so where did 70 come from? And really pushing the students' thinking forward. So we measure these practices, count them, and then we show the teachers these moments. And what we find is that this is a very effective way to help teachers teach in a better way. And I think that's, to answer your question about, well, what does the classroom look like where this AI, we now have about 10,000 teachers using the platform, and have now seen that the tool is very effective at getting teachers to use these practices more. We've now had independent researchers do 4 different large-scale randomized control trial studies that have shown that, the insights that are in our product, when teachers are randomly selected to receive them, they use the practices more, and it has an impact on student outcomes. So, yeah, that's a little bit about TeachFX.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dacia Toll. This is my 25th year in education, and for 23 of those 25 years, I was a teacher, principal, and ran a system of schools. And for 2 years now, I've been an EdTech founder. And I think the biggest driver and I'm the co-CEO of Coursemojo. But for me, that classroom experience, and I very much appreciate the way this question is phrased, which is like, what's the vision for how the classroom, and I appreciate the point about that could be more broadly defined, exists. Because sometimes I think, especially in spaces like this, we have the AI conversation. And that's not, I don't think, the right door to come through. The question is, what are the problems and challenges that we're trying to solve? And then how is AI one of the tools we need, of course, alongside teachers and content and students themselves. And so we've built Mojo to be embedded in the classroom, and one of the big differences is it's curriculum aligned, and we're going deep on middle school ELA. So imagine a middle school ELA classroom. Part of what's happened in the last decade is a lot of schools have adopted these high-quality instructional materials, and they are rigorous and relevant and engaging, and the gap has never been greater between what the curriculum imagines, not just sort of the texts and tasks, but also the variation between full group discussion and small group work and individual work, and where the kids are right now. The differentiation challenge that has long existed in public education, and there's good data on this now. In a middle school classroom, there used to be a 5 grade level span. It's now, after COVID, a 7 grade level span. Wow. It used to be that multilingual learner meant Spanish speaker in the vast majority. Now there are multiple languages in the same classroom, and we're asking that teacher to do it all. And so for us, Mojo is both an assistant to the teacher and a tutor to the students and a small group facilitator, because those are the modes that are existing, all of which we want to superpower. So what that looks like, because Mojo's curriculum aligned, and I would argue this is one of the big issues with GPT, is that we've not found the simple training even of a GPT model gets you the level of student questioning and true Socratic support and quality of feedback. So we take the pre-programmed content from these curriculum materials. What are the juiciest passages to close read? What are the most important questions to ask? How do you both teach reading habits and help them understand this text? It's a lot of work, thinking work, that great teachers do. So Mojo works one-on-one with kids and small groups, because I also think that's important, is that it not be just an isolated activity, gets them ready for the full group discussion, gives insights to the teacher on these were the big discussion questions you were going after. This one, you don't need to, because the kids have already got it. This one, there's a pretty significant misunderstanding. And it's that kind of partnership, and then facilitates the grading, all in the context of what they're already trying to do. That's our current vision. For where I hope it's headed in 4 years, I feel like we're having 2 separate conversations about AI right now. One is, how can it improve teaching and learning? Super important conversation. The other is, what's the future going to be for the young people we're preparing today, and how are they going to be able to navigate an AI-enhanced career? And I think there's both ways in which we need to be teaching them to effectively use AI. Happens to know my partner, is going to talk about that in a minute. But also, what are the skills, the even more human skills, that we need them to be good at? So my hope ultimately is that Mojo is not just providing feedback on student reading and writing, but also feedback on how effectively you're building on the ideas of your teammates, how effective the team is at resolving conflict, how effective the student is at asking original questions. That's my hope.
Thank you. Adeel.
Hi, my name is Adeel Khan. I'm the founder of MagicSchool. And before doing this, I was a teacher and a principal my whole life. I got these folks beat. I've been doing this for about 10 months now. This is my first time as a tech CEO. And MagicSchool is the fastest growing technology platform for schools ever. We're sitting at about 2 million educators signed up for the platform in that 10-month span. MagicSchool is a generative AI first platform, so we're certainly meeting a moment where this wave of AI technology is hitting the mainstream. And MagicSchool often is the first gateway that the educators have beyond ChatGPT into what generative AI can do in the classroom. MagicSchool does the things that you might expect, like build a lesson plan, help you build a rubric, but also maybe some things that you might not expect. As a former teacher and principal, I know that educators don't just build lesson plans. They do so much more behind the scenes that contribute to the experience a child has. So you can do things like, if a student gets into a disciplinary situation in school, you can create a restorative reflection based on that incident. So a student got in a shoving match in the cafeteria. You can use generative AI to create a, how did that happen? How were you feeling at that time? What are the next steps? You can also do things like write an IEP if you're a special education teacher. I started my career in special education. Writing IEPs was so intimidating, so scary, and took me hours of time, and that doesn't even include the anxiety to even start. And MagicSchool gives you a really phenomenal starting place before you come to that family. So MagicSchool is extraordinarily practical. Teachers often, the proliferation of MagicSchool is certainly built on the backs of community members, often instructional technology coaches in schools. And they'll tell us the story that, hey, at the beginning of the school year, I introduced ChatGPT to my teachers, and they were excited about it, but they never used it. And then 2 months later, they brought me MagicSchool. They showed me all the things they were doing with it, and they were able to harness this incredible technology that I was so excited about in this really simple way. We recently launched our MagicSchool for Students platform that puts in the hands, controlled by teachers, generative AI experiences for students, where teachers can assign different things to students in these modules, where a student joins a room, a teacher monitors their conversations with AI, and the student could have a conversation with a grade level appropriate chatbot with some guardrails in it. They could also use a TutorMe application. They could also, input their writing and get feedback on their writing from the tool, all controlled by, rubrics generated by teachers that they attach to that writing feedback tool. They can even do things like create a song based on what they learned in class, or make a rap battle between two historic figures. It's a really fun and exciting time in education. In terms of the path that I see AI taking and what the future looks like in education. So one, we've kind of followed a roadmap from the start of how we thought about this rolling out. If we believe that AI is going to be a greater part of our future in every profession, understanding how to use generative AI, that phrase is always used, you won't be replaced by AI, but you will be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI really well, then students will need to learn how to use that before they head into the workforce, because that will make them more employable in the future. So if students are going to need to learn how to use generative AI in school, our premise was, well, then teachers should have meaningful experience with generative AI, because they're going to craft those experiences for their students that are really meaningful. So it starts there. Teachers now start learning how to use AI. They understand its limitations, they understand its benefits, they understand how to use it appropriately, not as a replacement for thinking, but as a tool in their toolkit, and then they bring that experience to their students. That's inning one. Inning two is, now we start thinking about, well, should that 9th grade student in the 9th grade class, who, and this is, I led a school, so I can be critical of myself here, who could write a phenomenal 5-paragraph essay beautifully, why are they writing that same essay as a senior, right? Maybe what we're doing in senior year, or as kids get older, are much more authentic experiences, and kids are using these AI tools to manifest things in the real world, whether that be starting a business when you're 16 years old, whether that be taking a generative AI model and creating a movie, right, based on the short story that you wrote in school that is viewed by millions of people around the world. Now you don't have to have that barrier of editing for 100 hours, right? You don't have to learn all of this sophisticated technology. You can actually manifest something that makes an effect on the world while you're in school. And for the educators in the room, the most creative people I have ever met are kids in high school, right? They have imaginations that, when tapped into, can do incredible things, and these tools will just accelerate that. So I see a world where there's far more authentic work happening in the classroom, because students have dexterity with these tools.
Thank you, Adeel. So I want to, Dacia, you were talking about your new experience as a EdTech CEO. I think one of the really fascinating things that you're bringing to the table is your vast experience being both a practitioner in schools and running a large charter school network. There was a question about what does it actually take for these tools to be absorbed into the classroom. So I want to start with you. With your tool that you're seeing in places where it's being implemented as you interact with colleagues, what does it take for teachers to bring these AI tools into the student experience, into the planning that they do behind the scenes, compared to what they're doing now?
Yeah, so I think the reality, we're probably not allowed to say this at an EdTech conference, but here you go. If I look back, at least, on the last 25 years, EdTech has spectacularly underperformed the promise. And the Lawrence Holt, who some folks in this room may know, just wrote a piece called The 5% Problem. And I think that's core to it, because even some of the EdTech products that have the greatest results from a student learning outcomes, there's often this asterisk or caveat or footnote that says, when used with fidelity. And when you reach the sort of magic usage threshold, that if kids are doing it 90 minutes a week or 30 minutes a week, whatever that threshold is, then you get the outcomes. The reality of it is that's only 5% for the vast majority of these products. That means 95% of students are using it less than the level that's required. And I think there are a whole bunch of reasons for that. I don't think kids have fallen in love with these products, but even more, teachers have not fallen in love with these products. And if you want high levels of usage, you could design it for an out-of-school use. But what we found about the out-of-school uses is the worst thing about that 5% is it's the most privileged 5%.
Yep.
And that if you actually want to reach the kids that I suspect many of us in this room most care about, it is a school usage question. So then that brings you to teachers. And I think most EdTech solutions are point solutions. They solve one narrow problem. And it's like yet another thing that the teaching job has always been challenging. It's super challenging right now. And I honestly think the last thing they need is another EdTech tool that's additive onto what they were otherwise doing. And so I think that's why we're working so hard, and I'm not saying we have the only solution, but to say, what are you already trying to do in your classroom? What are the materials that you're already expected to be using? What are the kinds of experiences you want to be happening in that classroom? And how do we make it both better and easier? And I think if you don't get in there, and so how do you do that? I hope many of us are very committed. I think the only way to design a product is to get in there with kids and teachers and have their feedback ultimately drive it. We did a series of one-week pilots that I thought was going to be crazy. It turns out to have been awesome, because we'd be 1 week on, 2 weeks off, go make the product better. 1 week on, 2 weeks off to go make the product better. Mm-hmm. And that sort of fast cycle improvement, our teacher satisfaction is a 4.8 out of 5 when evaluated across 10 different dimensions. And that's the number. We care about kids. We got in this for kids, but we know that it actually is the teacher satisfaction that's going to drive the student impact.
Thank you, Dacia. I'll just add one other example. I just went to Newark, New Jersey, where a third of the schools in Newark are going really deep on using Khan Academy District, which contains their Coursemojo AI product. And on the student side, I asked a lot of students, 5th and 8th graders, are you using this chatbot tool? And if you are, what are you using it for? And a young 5th grade boy sort of leaned into me and he started whispering. He said, I don't honestly understand all the time the way my teacher explains something. And I'm able to, on my own, during class time, ask the question to explain it to me in a different way, and I invariably get it. What that student was saying without saying is that I was otherwise going to be a little embarrassed to raise my hand. We asked the same question of the teachers, and one of the things that they were saying is not, I think Khan Academy is a really high-quality resource. They have lots of things they need to work out. What they liked about it is that when students used the Coursemojo product, they were able to use their chat interface to learn a whole bunch of things about what was going on with the students. So to your point about solving a really practical problem, the way to getting that teacher adoption, at least in that case, was just doing something that fit into their workflow by virtue of students using it. So I just want to give another example of that I've seen. Speaking of Khan Academy, somebody that does not like Khan Academy is Dan Meyer, who works for Amplify Math. And if you've ever read any of his blog entries, wanted to ask this question for you, Ankit. One of the things that he talks about, he in many ways is an AI skeptic as it relates to the role that AI is going to play in solutions where our mental image is one where it's a student sitting down in front of a computer interacting with a chatbot. And he says that he's very skeptical that that sort of model of the use of AI in education technology is not going to work, is because he says the reason is because students come to school because they care about being respected and appreciated by other students, and they want to be there to be respected and appreciated by that teacher. And that he just doubts that artificial intelligence will ever make a student feel that same level of respect and acceptance that they would from a human. So I'm curious from your perspective, do you feel like the artificial intelligence tools again in the future are ever going to be able to deliver on that sense of connectedness, respect? Do you agree that where AI has the potential to go with teachers is different than where it has the potential to go with students?
Right, so first I had a chance to meet Dan yesterday and had a chance to even get more of his perspective. But before I answer that question, I do want to share like my own personal story. I do believe the reason I'm sitting here is because of that one teacher who really deeply connected with me and made sure that, I actually worked and studied because I didn't want to disappoint that teacher. So I'm sure many of us have been in that situation, and I do believe that human connection is so important in this whole story, where that teacher not only brings, the instruction, but then also ends up being a champion for that kid. And when I see the AI, I don't feel that it's going to be a teacher-facing versus a student-facing. I believe if we look at the time which a teacher is spending in a classroom, I think 50% or more of time is just going into a lot of administrative tasks, getting just the right content. I do believe this new technology has this potential where they can really take all this complexity out of that teacher's life and then really allow them to do what they do best, is connecting with that student. I want to maybe emphasize this with some things which we have been seeing at Quizizz. So I talked about how with Quizizz now, a teacher previously who used to take 40 minutes to create that content is now doing it on 5. So now they have additional 35 minutes that mean they can spend more with the class. However, the more interesting part is we realized that a lot of teachers were taking that same quiz. They used to make a copy. They used to change certain, they used to reduce answer options on it. They used to increase the time it would take to answer a particular question. And they were making these different versions. And it was not all the teachers, but once we realized that, hey, these teachers were not only creating this one version, but then given the challenges in the classroom, where more than 15% of the class is with special ed needs students, accommodation is becoming a more and more important need. And with AI really coming in, we literally launched accommodation profiles on Quizizz back in February. And we have seen now teachers have first time gotten this opportunity where in a non-judgmental way, they have been able to truly reach to every student in that class. So to me, it necessarily is not like, hey, does AI need to do every task? It's more about, can it take away things which it is good at and then let the humans do what they are doing the best. So at least is my philosophy, and as things evolve, we'll see where the world goes.
Thank you. So you did hear the question about ChatGPT. So obviously, generative AI has been all the buzz. I think I was actually sitting in this room last year when I saw one of the first demos of GPT 3.5. I think my mind had the same reaction that many of yours did. But Jamie, you mentioned at the outset that generative AI is not necessarily the type of AI that TeachFX is using. Can you talk about other types of AI, the role that they have for teachers, and what you would like this group to know about how those types of AI are going to help teachers?
Yes, and I will also, in the process, weigh in on the Dan Meyer debate, because Dan I consider a friend. So, so what our tech, what's pretty unique about what we do is our vision of learning isn't this idea of a kid with headphones looking at a computer, right? We want to facilitate human connection. And so the type of AI that we're using, it's a variety of types, but the first part is called speaker diarization. So we're really understanding who's talking, when there are silences, when there's multiple voices happening at once, when a student hands the ball to another student versus when the teacher is coming in. And this really is the building block of our technology. So really understanding that audio environment of the classroom is how we begin to give insights and feedback to the teachers. And then, this is something that's a very challenging technical problem, but it's a very different field than the generative AI that is phenomenally exciting and very cool. We also do a lot of work on natural language processing, which is related to what you might see in a chatbot, but we're taking audio that's spoken by humans and transcribed, and then determining, what kind of question was that? Was that a focusing question that was helping the student understand what they know about slope? What do you know about slope as you work through this problem? Or was it a question that's trying to funnel them to a specific answer? And so that kind of analysis is pretty different than when you walk over on the air show floor, if any of you, the countless examples of really exciting uses of generative AI. And I think to kind of pivot into this little debate, if it is one, I really believe that there's tremendous potential for AI to enhance the human connections that we have with each other by allowing us to be better dialogue partners with each other, with our students with each other, and helping motivate and inform those conversations. And that's really what we're trying to facilitate at TeachFX.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask Adeel a question, and then we're going to mentally go back to the questions that started across the room to see if we've missed any, and then we're going to open up the mics to all of you to ask your questions of this esteemed panel. Adeel, so one of the main problems with K-12 education in the United States is that it offers such a worse educational experience for Black students, Latino students, students of color, all students experiencing poverty. What, from your perspective, does the use of AI for teachers have to do with equity?
So there's a lot of layers there. I think that AI can be an incredible force for equity, one of which you actually named a second ago, which is simply AI does an incredible job at translation. It's one of the best parts of the generative AI technology is that not only can it translate beautifully to one of hundreds of languages, it can also speak beautifully if you use the natural language processing models that are out there to students too. So it can read back to students audibly in natural language in many different languages as well. And MagicSchool can do that, but a lot of generative AI tools can do that as well. So if you think about a school district with a lot of newcomers, a lot of folks who are English language learners, this is an incredibly powerful technology that allows them to build agency over their own learning. And I think the example you use is a great example of that student becoming an agent of their own learning and having this resource and this power now that they didn't have before to, when they were struggling, help themselves, right? And every educator I know, their goal for their students is that they become agents of their own learning in the future and agents of their own lives. And I'm a big believer that AI only accelerates that. The future is in the hands of the resourceful. You're going to have so many more tools to change the world with, and your ability to use those tools, your ability to employ them and arrange them in a way that manifests something of value in the world is going to be, your success or failure in the future will be contingent upon that in a way that has been true for forever, but even more true in the age of AI. And then, in a more practical way, there's some righteousness. Our team talks about this around this technology proliferating in public schools and in typically private schools and independent schools are the ones that adopt technology the fastest and are more open and willing to do these things. The bureaucracy that exists in large public school districts prevent technology from proliferating in those spaces, and we've seen this time and time again. There's a digital divide, there's an equity gap and proficiency in learning computers. One-to-one computers were at independent schools and private schools forever, and then the pandemic was the first time that we really started seeing proliferation around public schools. So I'll give you just a quick example of something that AI is creating an equity gap right here, right now in this moment. There is a public school district that banned AI last year, many, and they vilified it. They told their students that if they used it, they would be kicked out of school, they'd be suspended, they would be given an automatic F. And then there are independent, wealthy private schools that said, open playground, you're a senior in high school, do whatever you need to do with this, learn about it, figure it out, and we trust you. It's funny how that works, right? We trust rich, wealthy kids in independent schools, and we don't trust kids in public schools. That's for another conversation. But now that kid's going to show up on campus next to the rich, wealthy private school kid at CU Boulder, the one local to me in Colorado, and there's going to be a public school kid who doesn't use generative AI for their first draft of their 9th grade essay to get a start, get some ideas, because they've been told that they were bad for using it. And there's going to be a kid from an independent private school who'll have a leg up, and they'll spend all their time refining it, coming up with new ideas with generative AI, and now they're starting from a place that they just get, they're starting with a leg up, and that's happening today, right? That happened this year on campuses, and there are still school districts that haven't even started creating policies or thinking about how they're integrating this, even with seniors in high school. So, I'm not saying that this is, a one-size-fits-all for every community, but there is a real urgency around either we're going to repeat the mistakes of the past, we're going to continue to create a greater digital divide for our students, or we're going to see this as an equity challenge and we're not going to repeat those same mistakes. And it's not, it shouldn't be the private schools, the independent schools leading the pack here. It should be the public schools saying our kids deserve this. This is a challenge of equity. And I look forward to a world where the public schools start leading the way in this.
Thank you. All right, so I know we did not get to the original question about assessment. So as Donovan looks for your raised hands to ask questions, maybe we can see if we can't weave some answers around assessment. But please, looks like we've got about 5 minutes, and we'll do our best to answer your questions.
Hi, I'm a superintendent of a small school district, and throughout the conference, I've been really wondering, there's so many great tools. It's how are we going to get all these things? And which things are most important? So from your opinion, and again, you're not attacking the other people on the stage, of course, but in your mind, how are we going to do this as a school district? What are the things we're going to need with our products?
Anyone?
I feel like teaching practice is the big ignored part of the equation here. We have great curriculum, and but how do we know our teachers are implementing that curriculum effectively, right? And so, I really think dollar for dollar, you need to invest in the teachers, and I think all of us are trying to do that in a variety of different ways. We're kind of more focused on teacher practice and changing the way teachers question their students, et cetera. But I think we're all in some ways trying to move what I see as the main leverage point for change, not just within schools, but in the world. It's teachers. That's how we're going to turn this thing around.
I think, though, the way I would take your question, the truth is that the education K-12 market is broken. And it's broken for both the schools and for those of us trying to offer products to schools. And I think from the school perspective, and on both sides, frankly, it feels like it's dominated by sales and marketing. And that you reach a point at which you have to invest in these massive sales forces that have relationships with the 14,000 school districts across the country, each of which are idiosyncratic, have their own purchasing processes. And I think it's hard in this moment because, well, our products are at varying stages of development, but I think what everybody would want to see is, well, I'd like to see the randomized control trial that shows outcomes. And that takes years. And yet products like, I think I can speak for those of us that are early stage, we need the early stage innovation partners. We don't need them at scale. In fact, I would be the last person to say, I don't want to work with every kid in the school district. Like, I think we have to intentionally enter into R&D partnerships. And the way I would figure out I would start with what are my priorities and my goals. Before the sales force comes out with the EdTech, personalized learning, gobbledygook kind of, everybody sounds the same. So what are the problems that you're most interested in solving? Where do you, and then how do you figure out what are the products that are the most promising for early stage development? And then I do hope in several years, I mean, I sort of talked earlier about the adoption of high quality instructional materials. That is one of the few places where, whether it's Ed Reports, which I am a fan of, or the states had their own processes, there was actually a quality vetting process that happened, and it was some cases optional, in some cases not optional for district superintendents to follow, but at least we had a rigorous way of assessing. Now that was frankly easier because it was input-based. Do these curricula meet these criteria on a rubric? This is going to be more complicated, but I am hoping that an organization or organizations step forward like that and do a vetting process that's actually based on outcomes for students and teacher satisfaction and some of the other things we talked about today, so that it can make sense for school leaders.
Yeah. All right, so we've got one more question, but fear not. We've now met you, all of you. You've met all of us. We're going to be here. We can continue this conversation. Let's take one more question. We'll wrap it up here in like a minute, and then we'll let you be on your way. You've been very nice, very forward and standing up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that it's different stages of different folks, and I think that not being prescriptive of how you might do it, I mean, I think that it depends on, I guess, I was using college kids as an example, as they might have that happen. I was an English teacher. I love writing. I think writing is a way to get your thinking out on paper, so I think it's a really valuable thing to do before you get feedback. But when you think about writing a draft, it might not be even the core of the paper, but you think about ideating. Having, like, one of AI's best qualities is it can be a thought partner and an ideation partner when you don't have someone nearby. One thing that I do in my daily life when I use generative AI tools is I say, give me 30 ideas for this thing that I'm doing. I'm gonna send this, I'm creating this document, give me 20 things I didn't think of. That immediately expands my understanding of what I might do. I probably won't use 20 of them, but there's some ideas in there that I wouldn't have thought of on my own, and now I'm better as a result. So I think the idea of having that there as a thought partner is kind of what I was getting at, but I definitely, I'm in agreement with you. I think that writing is a way of processing your thinking. It's such a powerful thing to do. So don't hear me saying that we should stop writing. Writing's really important. Again, I'm a former English teacher, and I think it's such a powerful skill to have, but there is points with which you can start using AI to enhance that process, and that's kind of what I was getting at.
With that, we will close our session. Please offer your appreciation for our panelists.